My grandpa was like my ultimate hero. He took me everywhere. He taught me how to drive his truck around the Oak Park in Greenfield. We'd go on camping trips and we'd do family reunions. This one was actually a trip to Idaho. And I was attached to his hip. I was always with him. And I took care of him his last year of his life. And it was a good time for me to spend with him, but it also was really hard for me when he passed away. So this is my kids when they were younger. This is how I remember them before I started getting locked up. They were so small, and then I came out and they were literally grown adults. So this was the picture of us right before I was arrested for this last charge. It was Mother's Day, and my mom told me that I need to stop coming in and out of their lives, that I need to make a decision if I'm gonna be a mother or not, because I'm torturing them doing what I was doing. And so she took us to breakfast that day, and my selfish ways, I actually said goodbye to them that day. And it actually was kind of funny because I got arrested the next day, and it really was kind of a goodbye, but look at me now. My name is Amber. I am the house manager at the Hope House. I grew up with my two parents who had me at a very young age. My mom was 16 and my dad was 20. They both dropped out of high school, unfortunately, because they got married at a young age when they found out they were pregnant with me, and they've been working ever since. Teen years were a little chaotic. I was trying to fit in with a cool kid group. I did a lot of partying, a lot of underage drinking. I got alcohol poisoning when I was in high school and had to have the emergency EMT truck show up because I had alcohol poisoning, got my stomach pumped for the first time. Didn't learn my lesson after that, continued to drink. It caused a lot of problems between me and my mom and my dad because they wanted to see me do better than what they had done with their lives. I was just trying so hard to be liked and fit in, and never really found that group, really, that I could just be me. I was always trying to be somebody else. I started smoking weed at a young age and drinking and partying, and I had goals to go to college, and I got pregnant right outside of high school and decided I couldn't go off to college like the rest of my friends were doing, so I stayed home and had my son, my oldest son, who's now 21. Well, when my oldest son was 9 months old, I met my then soon-to-be husband. We met at a party through a mutual friend. He has an alcohol problem as well. He tends to be very verbally and emotionally abusive, so our marriage was kind of rocky for the most part. I got clean and sober when I got pregnant with my two younger children, and he continued to drink, and the marriage just really fell apart. We tried to make it work. Everything in the raising of our children involved alcohol. We couldn't even celebrate our children's first birthday without alcohol being present. After 7 years of marriage, I decided I couldn't take it anymore, and I asked for a divorce. I moved out and became a mom of 3, trying to raise my kids and work full-time on my own, and it was hard. It was a lot of stress, a lot of pressure to keep up with the bills, to keep up with the balance of life. I started smoking weed, using cocaine, and drinking an obscene amount to the point where I would call in sick consistently. I ended up embezzling from work because I couldn't keep up with my bills, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't want to admit to my family that I was in a bad place, that I needed them, because that's just not what you do. I grew up in a household where emotions just aren't shown like that. You just kind of suck it up and deal with it, and so I didn't know how to healthily have relationships, how to discuss my problems, my stress and all that. So I ended up getting arrested and went to jail. My ex-husband then at that time took over custody of my 2 younger ones. My oldest son and him butted heads really badly, so he ended up choosing to go stay with my parents. And it was really hard for me because I was in custody, trying to get clean, trying to figure out what to do with my life after that. So I got released from jail and tried to pick up where I left off. I ended up moving in with my grandma because I had nowhere else to go. And at the time, my grandpa was really, really sick. And so I decided that I was going to stay and take care of him. Having to watch the strongest man I've ever known just fall apart and lose his memory, and having to be going from being so independent, taking care of the entire family, to having someone take care of him. It was hard. I don't deal with death very well. I've never had to really deal with it. So I didn't grieve properly. Instead, I ran away from the situation, ran away from my family, started using, started hanging out with an even worse crowd. And life just kind of snowballed out of control after that. My cocaine addiction went to methamphetamine. I started hanging out with gangs. I started not giving a crap about anything, not about my family, not about my kids, not about my own self. I just gave up. I had no hope. My addiction took me to really ugly places. I was alone. I was surrounded by people, but physically and mentally are two different things. I didn't feel like I had anybody I could count on. I was doing everything for myself, and in return, I was also doing everything for everybody around me. I was putting myself in situations that I shouldn't have been putting myself in, because it's not like those people would have done the same for me. And you know, it took me to ugly places, and I just tried to every day get up and be a good person, but I was just stuck on, you know, the feeling of having to use to cover these feelings that I had, and the pain that I was feeling, and not having my family in my life. And it's an ugly place to be stuck in your addiction. So I started getting myself involved in criminal activity and making poor choices, and found myself locked up again. And this time they sent me to a rehab. It was court ordered, and ended up getting into trouble there, and I got kicked out. And I was too ashamed to tell anybody that I got kicked out, so I ran back to the people that I was with before and spent a month just running amok, using again, and just destroying what was left of my life, until finally my grandma picked me up and she took me home, and she said, "No, you're gonna go back and you're gonna do this." And so my mom took me back up to the program, and I completed a year-long program, graduated, did all my steps. I was clean and sober for a couple years, had my own place, and was getting to be allowed to be back in my kids' lives again and be a part of my family. And so I made the choice to move back home, where it was closer to be with my kids. And so I moved back, and within a month, I was back to doing the same crap I was doing before. I relapsed. I was hanging out with the same people. The only difference this time was I was working a full-time job. I was still being a part of the family, and I still had my kids 50-50. I was living a double life, basically. I ended up having the police knock on my door one day, and my roommate at the time had gone and taken my car, and inside the car was a backpack full of drugs and cell phones that I was going to be throwing over the fence to CMC prison later that night. And he got pulled over in my car, and when they searched the car, they found the backpack, and he decided that instead of taking the charges, he would just spill on everything I was doing, because I had been doing it for a while. And so the police came knocking on my door and arrested me, and I was looking at 17 years. So I sat in county for almost a year fighting my case. My parents came to visit me. My oldest son came to visit me. He actually came to visit me towards the end of my stay, because I had been sentenced to prison at that point. And I didn't want them visiting me there, so my mom asked him if he'd be okay to come see me at the jail, and he decided to. It's hard having to tell your children that you screwed up. It's hard having to explain to them why you chose drugs over them again. I saw the embarrassment in his eyes. He didn't want to be there, but he also wanted me to know he loved me. I ended up getting sentenced to 4 years and got to Chowchilla in November of 2018. And I wasn't supposed to get out until April of 2021. But I made the decision when I got to prison that I was going to use my time wisely and I wasn't going to allow this to take me out. I wasn't going to be a victim anymore of my poor choices, that I was going to do something productive with myself and my life. And so I started programming, and I ended up getting out December 2nd. My original plan when I paroled was to go home, and at the very last minute, it was like almost a week before I was paroling, I called home and I told my mom and dad, I said, I know I have a plan in place, and I know I need to be with my kids, but I think I need to get myself right before I go home and try to be a mother. And in order to do that, I need to be far away from people, places, and things that I'm familiar with. I figured this is my best choice. Start fresh, start over, and do what I need to do. They support you to the fullest. They help you work out your problems. They give you a safe environment to do that in, which is absolutely key. I mean, this place feels like home. From the minute I walked in, I was welcomed with open arms. It's just a good feeling. It's an overwhelming feeling of love, and it's true, it's genuine, and it's not, there's no expectation behind it other than they want to see you succeed.
Your voice was cracked.
I know. All right.
So when I first met you, I could tell that you were really angry.
Yeah.
And that you were pretty guarded.
Yeah.
When we first met. And then, you know, the first time that you opened up to me was when I gave you that ride.
Right.
To work,
Yeah.
and you let your guard down a little bit.
Yep.
And then that's when you said, I said, what are your future plans? And you said, I'd like to stay on at the house for as long as I can. Really, what our mission is at Restorative Partners is having someone like you get in the house that can give back to these women what you've been given.
Yeah.
And
It's the
that's all
ultimate gift.
what it's about. It's
Right.
it's a gift.
It is
And
definitely.
it's your gratitude that really shows through.
Yeah.
And they feel it, the women here feel it. And, you know, we are grateful for you.
The girls are like family. It's crazy how you can only know somebody for a short period of time, but you literally grow so close to them that they become family. And I would go out of my way to make sure everybody in this house succeeds if I could, but I know it's not just me that has to help them. They have to be willing to put in the work and help themselves. So it's hard watching people walk out that door because you just want to hold tight. But you know, you have to let them spread their wings at some point. So this is me now with them, and I'm back, and they're a part of my life, and they're all amazing, and they've used all my stories and my mistakes, and they're going the complete opposite way that I've ever gone. They're all 4.0 students, not into the party life, not into drugs, not into the criminal behavior. They're amazing. I think if I could give anybody a message, it'd just be don't give up on themselves. It's never too late. And it doesn't matter where you come from, what kind of childhood you had. It's okay, we all have struggles, but it doesn't mean we have to let them control us. We can rise above it. Yeah.
Why make them want to, darn it?
Oh, man.